Okay, we're going to do the house cleaning very quickly and get to the film. 1. This is not my personal list. This is based on a fair-minded analysis of 80 years of film. So, there you go. Secondly, all Star Wars films spoiled. Every single one. From Episode 1 to Episode 9, Rogue One, the whole one. Okay, so all spoiled. Just warning you. Number 3, I will use some technical film terms. If you do not know these film terms, I feel sorry for you. There are tons and tons of intro film analysis courses, but I will use terms like mise en scène, auteur, cutting, editing, the whole thing, montage. So if you do not know these terms, I feel sorry for you. Please watch a couple of intro courses. They're widely available. They don't take that long. 4, yes, I saw Red Letter Media. I liked it. Now I consider parody, but I will take some of their criticisms into account. Number 5, I will say sorry, George, a lot, because I did actually see the film in 1999 alone in theaters. So if that's a weird verbal tick, I will say I apologize, George, because I misread the film. So if you get tired of that, I'm sorry, but I will say I apologize, George, periodically. And finally, yes, I will say, just let me put my cards on the table. I will say, to preview things, I definitely will say Jar Jar in some scenes is objectively terrible. I know Ahmed and George did a lot, but I appreciate what they did. I do agree that in certain places Jar Jar is irredeemable. However, I don't think he's all that bad, and yes, if you look at the film fairly, he is the only hero besides Anakin. So, but I will not lie in this analysis. Jar Jar is pretty bad in certain places. Okay, with that said, let's get to the film. We're going to start with the crawl, and I'm just going to put very upfront that people don't look at this very strongly because they don't really get that this is the last Star Wars film. Attack of the Clones and Revenge are digital. Whatever we think of that choice, this is the last film crawl. So, again, I apologize to George. I didn't recognize the value of that, and at least try to see it once more in the theater, because even if you can afford a 16 print, you can't go back to that time period. So there's something just magical and valuable about seeing it the first time. And I did enjoy it the first time, but I definitely thought it was just, it's beautiful, but it's kind of boring, that kind of thing. Okay, now what's interesting about the crawl itself is how radically it gives the theme away, because if you look at it carefully, he does say greedy trade federation. People skip that over. Greed literally is in the dialogue quite a few times, so that I will take for granted is the theme of Phantom Menace. Greed. Greed is what this film is about. And greed and versus compassion. And as we'll see, the Jedi themselves are not free of greed. They sometimes themselves are very, very greedy. Although I'll put this far above 2001, there's definitely a big 2001 feeling when we get to the right at the beginning with the Trade Federation, especially the ships. The ship design, I mean, it's very beautiful and brilliant, but it does seem very derivative to me of Kubrick's 2001. And this is not going to be that kind of film analysis. I will not discuss politics except where it is explicit in the film, but I know some people are going to already be rancorous if I bring this up, but it is true, let's be honest, that he has a female pilot when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan come in, and as far as I know, looking back at the OT, yes, women were there. Obviously they were there, but let's be honest, their roles were pretty small. I think there was even a female pilot, but he decided to cut her out. So yeah, women not too strong, but here they have definitely increased in representation. So I'm sorry, we have to note a factual as well as clearly cinematic change in what we're seeing. So, but don't worry, she dies very quickly, so I'm not going to go back to it. But I thought that was really interesting. He's suddenly doing a lot of things and changing the world and changing the universe, good and bad, by the way. So. And as far as the Neimoidians, this is, again, I have to presuppose some people are beginner Star Wars people, even if they've seen the films. That's based on Nimoy, so they're kind of odd. I would say more. I mean, it seems like they look like priests. I mean, I found, going back to it, like, everyone looks like a priest. It's very religious. I mean, when we see the Jedi, they're in hoods. Now, I don't think that's religious. I think it's more like a horror trope. I think he's trying to do, honestly, something like Michael Myers and Halloween, because the first shots of them, they're completely covered. We really don't see the faces. I mean, they're totally obscured. They're like completely in shadows. So I think he's giving us visual clues that they are essentially the evil protagonists. Not as evil as the Sith, obviously. They're not Palpatine, but they're not good people. We should be very well aware of the way they're wrapped up in the robe and just concerned with themselves. Like, yeah, they're not good guys. And it's funny, too, again, how he gives so much away. He has an amazing callback with Obi-Wan. If you listen to I have a bad feeling of this. And if you know all the Star Wars, that's obviously Han, but it makes no sense. Like, why would Obi-Wan say, I have a bad feeling? That's very interesting. And he already says right at the beginning, I have a elusive feeling something evil is happening. And Qui-Gon's like, yeah, you're being paranoid. He says, concentrate on the here and now and the living force. I honestly don't know what he means by living force. I mean, maybe he means the wills. I guess he means that. Or maybe it's a kind of metatextual thing about the thing they're in. I don't know. It's very weird. And jumping into the more mise-en-scène, I noticed that blues now are so prominent. If you look at the droids on the shoulder, when Palpatine shows up through the hologram, definitely when the droidekas come, like, their shields are blue. And of course, people know that Obi-Wan's saber is blue, so a lot of blues. And I'm not going to go too far. I think the background of the spaceship itself, it seems more gray or white. You could say it's dark blue, or at least a kind of gray-blue combination, but blues are very, very prominent. There's that very beautiful scene when they start attacking the droids. You can just see this contrast between, because Qui-Gon's saber is green, and I do think that is a political message with the environmentalism, because he looks like a hippie. So that, I thought, was a really interesting visual sign. So yeah, there's this great contrast between green, blue, orange, yellow. There's a lot to love. Because the battle droids are horrible, in my opinion, as characters, but once you see them as a color thing, there's just a beautiful contrast between, the Jedi and the sabers and their bodies, which are, at least yellowish. I know some people might say they're golden. There's definitely an interesting contrast. I will criticize, however, the casting call, because obviously Ian is great, and I think Ewan is okay. I don't think he's that good. I think Liam is meant to be not very expressive. He does a good job of that, but definitely Portman feels like the weak link, because I just don't see much what she's doing with Amidala. It's very great when the Neimoidians and her have that teleconference call. She's very stout and very, she knows what's going on. And it's a weird thing that the criticism of the film is it's very boring, but you can clock it. In the first 10 minutes, the invasion happens. Like, they say, like, our transmission has been cut off, so this is an invasion. So the plot is technically very rapid. I mean, people think, like, wow, it's taking a long, long time. But, George is just doing a very simple media res kind of storyline. I mean, in other words, we're being dropped in right in the halfway point. But the problem is people don't know the background, because I have no idea who the hell are these people? Who are the hell those people? Who are the hell? So, yeah, there is that dilemma that you have to know a little bit about the lore, or you will be utterly lost. What the hell is this film about? Because he's not going to give you the intro to, the Star Wars universe. Even if you saw the OT, you're going to be very confused. Like, who are these people? What's going on? Like, what is this even about? Because people have criticized, like, yeah, it's fine, but why concentrate on taxes? It's not about taxes at all. The Trade Federation are just pawns. I think you have to be careful. The opening crawl is misdirection. That's what the story is about. But the real story is Palpatine. He's just using the whole thing, the war, the crisis, to gain power. Like, here I go with the I apologize, George. I apologize to George right at this point, because I thought when Palpatine does the conference call, wait, isn't he the Chancellor? So I was just confused. Like, why would the Chancellor, who is himself, send the Jedi? I mean, I get it, he's manipulating things, but isn't that, like, too risky? Isn't that going to destroy his plan? Isn't that, like, really? He's not the Chancellor. I mean, he's still centered at this point. So, I mean, it is kind of a plot problem, like how he's so easily or quickly, because we'll see him just a couple of minutes later talking to Amidala. So I'm like, wow, this guy is fast. Like, but as we'll see, if you see Revenge of the Sith, he is fast. If you say, I don't get it. Can he really move that fast to change his clothes? And just doing that. And the answer is yes. He can move so quickly. He also has force concealment power. So the idea that he could change his appearance in like 1 or 2 minutes is, yeah, he could do that. I mean, I presuppose he did change his clothes, but the idea that how can he go back and forth so quickly? He can do that. He's been trained for decades by Plagueis. So he's been planning this for quite a long time. So it looks to us like that's kind of convenient. The Sith are insanely powerful and sneaky. They live to have conspiracies. So the idea that he's playing a good role, Senator and Palpatine and Sidious is, that's believable. So I apologize to George. I thought that was a big plot hole, but it's not a plot hole. It's just, I mean, again, we don't know how powerful the Sith are yet, but I think we can presuppose they're very powerful. Now, when we do the droideka, I will say this does feel like a plot hole. It does feel like an objective problem, both in terms of Star Wars and just in terms of film, because when they find the droidekas, it does confirm the blue pattern, but It's very weird because they're evil, but they have a blue shield. It also confirms my movie monster kind of hypothesis, because if you look when Qui-Gon is trying to get to the door, it's terrifying. I mean, the Neimoidians look insanely scared, like the Jedi are going to kill them. And we don't know if they would, but you can see the fear in their eyes. They're like, how can they get through the door? But in the terms of the droideka fight, I mean, it's kind of weird because Qui-Gon says it's a standoff, right? But they leave. And you're like, wait, if it's an actual standoff, why don't they just use the lightsaber, get it? You know, it would be risky a little bit, but, you know, just go slowly, you know, march up to them and just destroy the little guns and kill them. Like, why move from the droidekas? That didn't make sense, because they could have ended the crisis really quick. Also, they use super speed. I mean, you could say, no, that's not super speed, that's a Jedi mind trick. But no, they're droids. They wouldn't use a Jedi mind trick. So they just use super speed. Like, boom, they're out. And, okay, you're like, wait. As far as I remember it, and I'll be corrected, they never use it again. Now, with Qui-Gon, because he dies, that's not a big problem. That's fine. But Obi-Wan is there for quite a while in the story. So, like, you never, ever use super speed again? That felt like a big problem. So that felt like a really difficult choice. Now, I also think the shadow thing, again, confirms the movie monster thing. I know people saying you're reading into it, but, I mean, they're hiding from the droids. Why wouldn't they be in shadow? That's kind of a stupid, illogical argument. They can be in bright space, by the way, as long as the droids don't see them. If they're in a concealed room and they, you know, hit the switch and it's all light, the droids are not going to see them. So there's definitely a deliberate stylistic choice to constantly put them in shadow. I mean, if you go back, Qui-Gon, Obi, they are in the shadows quite a lot. So I think he's already cluing you in. The Jedi should not be totally trusted. They do have a lot of the dark side. And definitely Qui-Gon, we're going to see, does some horrific things with Anakin. I mean, he kidnaps him. He lets his mother basically die. He basically buys Anakin. He steals from Watto. He makes sure Watto ends up poor and impoverished. And he deserves it, but he does a lot of ugly things in the course of the narrative. And of course, he gets redeemed because he sacrificed himself with Darth Maul. I think that was the point of it. But he does some really questionable things. So I don't think we should see the Jedi as the heroes. And I think people are thrown like, what are you talking about? Do you hate Star Wars? No. I think, listen, if you look at the rhyme quote, I think what he's trying to say is this. Like, with the beginning of Star Wars, we get an obvious contrast with, you know, Leia and Darth Vader. She's white, he's black, but here's like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. What I want to do is have the heroes be the villains. We're going to do it from the villain point of view, at least at the beginning. We're doing it from the Neimoidians. From the Neimoidian point of view, they are the invaders. They are the enemies. They are the villains. They are the horror creature trying to destroy them. So I think he's just kind of cleverly going backwards. He's not doing Star Wars 77. He's doing this version, but from a skewed angle. So I know people think, you hate Star Wars. No, it's right there. Just go through the first couple minutes. I think it's pretty clear. He's trying to be visually tricky in terms of, should we like these people or not? Now, when we first meet Jar Jar, it definitely feels, yeah, no pun intended, it's very jarring. Like, how is he so magically in the jungle? And he does have some weird dialogue where he talks about, oh, Misa this, Misa that. But if you look closely, I'm not going to get into racial politics with Jar Jar in this video, but he says servant. I'm not calling him out, but he does say the word servant. So that's a little puzzling. Why is he saying this? Now he says, oh no, the gods, you're my you're my master now. I think he's just being clever. I think the thing with Jar Jar, people think he's stupid, but he shows very early on, he's a hustler. Like, he's already seen the droid, so he's like, okay, I don't know who the hell you guys are. I don't even know if you're Jedi, but I know that you're powerful, so I need you guys. And then he lets it slip, like, oh, the best place is the Gunga City. Let's go there. But it's like, okay, let's take us there. It's like, whoa, wait, no, I've been exiled. So it's like, when he says that servant line, it's not necessarily a lie or the gods. When he talks about gods, he's like, well, maybe that's true with the Gungans, but it seems like he's just using rhetoric to, you know, trick them into becoming their his bodyguards, essentially. But they're like, okay, fine, we'll help you, but you got to help us, right? We need to alert the Queen, alert Naboo, because they don't know that the Gungans and the Naboo, quote, the humans they're not friends, so why would they help them? But they don't know at the time. So Jar Jar, I think, does a really great job of critically get us into the politics of Naboo and sort of the Gungans and the whole thing. Final thing is that I do think, like, with the greed theme, he's definitely talking a lot about environmentalism. Again, in real life, George is an environmentalist. I mean, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying bad. I'm just saying that's a fact. That's a basal fact. He clearly loves, studying social systems, anthropology, biology. And we're going to get this with the midichlorians, but he really is using this as a soapbox to get some environmental messages through, and that's fine. That's his prerogative, as long as it's not destroying the film. I have no issue with politics, but it's definitely very prominent when we see the droids. All these wild animals are fleeing and they're destroying the forest. So you get a very obvious thing that the Neimoidians, because they are, the Trade Federation are full of, these kind of greedy proto-capitalists. They're not themselves capitalists, but they're just traders. And so they're like, yeah, we'll just destroy the place and make money from it. So there is definitely that theme of like the machine destroying nature. And this is not original. This is all Kubrick, like how technology controls people and people control technology. It's a very Kubrickian thing. So if you see me like saying he's stealing Kubrick all the time, he really is. The color thing and the whole, kind of subverting genre and all that stuff, that seems very Kubrickian. I'm not saying he's just stealing it. I do think, though, the influence is at least a little too strong in places. So, again, I don't mind Kubrick. I think he's fine. But I do think the one problem here is that the influence is a little too strong. Okay, this does it for the first 10 to 15 minutes of Phantom Menace. We're going to do, again, bit by bit by bit. So this has been Star Wars Analyzed, the revisionist case for making Phantom Menace one of the best films of all time. Star Wars Analyzed, if you like the content, please hit the like button down below. Please like or subscribe. Thank you very much.